Hello everyone, welcome to the GrowCast show. My name is Yu Hong and I'll be your host for today. And today in our studio, we have Lilian Chan, a real estate agent with 10 years of experience. Let's get to our questions. Right, so Lilian, what were you doing before and why did you enter real estate at this stage of your life?
Actually, before I stepped into real estate full-time, I was actually working as an executive assistant in the corporate world. My work actually back then involves handling people, solving problems quietly behind the scene, making sure things run smoothly. And at one point, I was actually dabbling in real estate part-time as well. So the transition into real estate is not like sudden. It's actually gradually over time. I think at this stage of life, I realized that house is not just transactional. I see it very differently. And especially now, I realized that there's a lot of noise in the market. And I wanted to become a calm voice to help people who are very overwhelmed by all the information outside, to help them make a very clear decisions, what their housing requirement at that stage of life is. This is why I step into real estate full-time now.
So Lilian, you said you are not driven mainly by money. Then what keeps you motivated in this industry?
I think, don't get me wrong, money matters. I think we all have our responsibilities. We all have bills to pay. What really motivates me is when my clients appreciate my work. You know, they give me a pat on the shoulder and say, thank you. So I think I have a client, we sat down and have a talk. She was very unsure of what to do at her current stage of life. So I had a coffee with her, I talked to her, and then at the end, she just thanked me for giving her clarity, for giving her enough information that she can proceed on. And she just said a very small thank you. You make my decision making so much easier. And that really moves me because I think ultimately people only want someone to guide them along, want someone who's honest, who's clear in what they are doing to help them. And that, I don't know, it just touches me and motivates me to actually step in and be a real estate agent full time.
What do you think is the number one reason people are struggling with when it comes to property decisions today?
I think people are overwhelmed by information. You see a lot of online informations giving expert advisors and whatnot, TikTok videos, some more, right? Maybe I can just give you an example. I recently have a client. They actually came to my rental listing. So it's my habit. So we chit-chat. And then while chatting with them, I realized that they plan to buy a house. But somehow they were unsure. I met up again with them. We sat down and I actually went through their finances. I actually went through their options and all that. And they were very grateful that, I did that for them because I gave them a clear picture of what they can do with their finances. And now instead of renting, they're actually looking into buying a house.
What makes your approach different from many other agents out there in the market?
I think firstly, I don't believe that meeting client the first time will immediately turn into a transaction. For me, I truly believe that the best advisor is not someone who pushes the hardest, but rather someone who actually can help client understand, or rather to find out what the client needs the most at the stage of their life. Recently, I actually met up with this client. We had a talk and somehow we hit it off. And being the introvert, I tend to observe more and talking more. And somehow that client somehow opened up to me. For some reason, she just started to talk to me. I think because she was very comfortable with me, because I was just sitting there, I was just really listening to her and then asking the right questions somehow. And we kind of hit it off and she started to talk to me more. And that's when I realized that I can actually help her with her housing decisions. But unfortunately, it did not turn into a sale, but I made a friend.
So why did you choose the name Just Lilian?
Because this is who I am. I actually wanted something simple and practical and approachable. I want to allow, or rather have people approach me, find me approachable, and they can talk to me about anything. They can just talk to me without any pressure. But Just Lilian is also to remind myself that I need to be grounded and down to earth in that sense.
what does property conversations without the pressure actually means?
I would like my whoever I met to be able to speak to me without pressure. You know, a lot of times when people know that I'm an agent, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not going to ask anything because the next thing Lilian is going to pressure them into selling, buying, upgrading, and all that." So I actually wanted to create the opposite feeling. I hope that people can just come and talk to me about anything. You know, I'm not going to ask them to do anything if they are not ready or if it doesn't fit their life goal at that moment. So property conversation without pressure is you really can just come and talk to me without pressure.
So what kind of clients do you naturally work best with?
I think I work best with people who appreciate honest and practical guidance. I think a lot of times people I met, it's like a vibe thing. Somehow because I'm like a calm, practical person, I met clients who are like that as well. So I think it's kind of like the attraction thingy.
Okay.
You attract the kind of like same vibe, and clients they gave me the feedback is, yeah, I like you because you're calm, you listen carefully, you know what I go into details on knowing what I want. And I think that's the type of clients that I work best with. And I realize that most of them are probably around my age or younger. So it's probably about 40 and above kind. I guess because we mellowed down over age, so we kind of like gel well in that sense.
So what's the number one most common housing mistake that you see ordinary Singaporeans make repeatedly?
I think the number one is people making decisions based on fear. You fear of losing out, kiasu ma. So you fear of losing out. Somehow you heard your neighbor selling higher, and then you also want to catch up on that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of time I would advise my clients or my friends or families members that don't act on fear. Know what you want at this moment of time. You taking this action, does it make sense for you, your finances, your family, and all that? You need to understand more first, rather than jumping in just because you see someone doing the same. It could be maybe your friends are upgrading and then you also want to. That doesn't make sense. Ultimately, you have to answer to yourself, does this make sense for you? So I think this is my feel, the number one thing that people are doing.
So why do some homeowners feel overwhelmed even when their property has appreciated?
Why they are overwhelmed? Because appreciation on paper only. Some people are asset rich, but cash flow is they are stressed up on there. And it also bring on some other questions. For example, now that my asset has grown, do I take the next step? Do I want to upgrade? Then if I upgrade, am I going to be buying even higher as well? Or, all that kind of stress also come on. So I think that's why people may stress over after finding out that, their asset has actually appreciated in value. My advice for homeowners will be sit down and review your life goals. Is it time for you to move on, or is it just you can actually just don't do any action? Yeah, I think that's more important. Review what your current life goal is, and then decide from there. Don't get overwhelmed by it.
So what's 3 things that buyers should stop obsessing over?
I think first thing is actually a lot of people worry that they buy at the wrong time. So they want to wait for the perfect timing to go in, the perfect market and all that. But actually, if you need a house, that's the best time. There's really no right or wrong. It really depends on your needs at that moment. And the second one is some people may obsess over trying to maximize profit. So they'll be looking for the best PSF or the best unit to go in. But again, back to your needs. Is that if that unit makes sense for your finances, then I think you can just go ahead with it. And then lastly, the third one is a lot of people obsess about finding the right property, right unit. But my experience tells me that a lot of time buyers need to compromise on certain aspect. For example, sometimes they may be looking at this block, but the unit that they find could be the wrong facing, or they could be finding a unit on the wrong floor, but they like it so much. So ultimately, I think you need to know what is your most important needs and look for that unit that fits that need. And I think that would be the best.
So, do you think upgrading property is always the right move?
Personally, not really. Maybe I can share this. It's actually quite personal. My parents actually stay in a 4-room flat in Bishan. All the price movement and all that. My dad came and asked me about whether is it a good opportunity for him to sell the unit. I went through the calculations, and then we sat down, discussed. Financially, or rather, on paper, it makes sense to sell. However, we ran through all the options, and then my dad thought about it, and finally he decided no, he's not going to sell. One big reason is because of my mom. She's a dementia patient, so this kind of environmental change, we were quite concerned that it might affect her. If you ask me, in this case, upgrading is not necessary. So I think it really all depends on the client's needs and wants. So sometimes in my parents' case, it's not necessary.
So what's the number one thing people don't talk enough about before they buy or sell a home?
I think people forgot about the emotional readiness. A lot of time they are concerned with whether I got the funds, whether I got the right unit, but then they forgot about whether they are ready to do it. Because once you do this kind of decisions, it actually affects you. You forgot about whether, the changes are you're going to change to a new location, you got to build maybe new relationship, you got to change your routines and all that. So I think sometimes people miss out this part about whether they are ready. And I think it's actually quite important nowadays to talk about all this as well. When I meet up with my clients, I actually would ask them, what is their routine like first? Do you have to travel far? Do you have to exercise and all that kind of thing? Yeah. So I think all these are actually quite important for a person who's planning to buy or sell a house.
So what's the number one biggest misconception people have about real estate agents?
People thought that we are just out for the money. But actually, a lot of time, we are not just for the money. We actually genuinely want to help people. A lot of people don't see that we are behind the scene, doing calculations, handling emotions sometimes. We are also handling unexpected problems because clients, rather people don't think that we are trying to close the sale, and then sometimes they withhold information and that causes problem, which thereafter we need to come in and help. So I think it's actually okay to just speak to us, have a very frank conversation, which actually benefit both sides. It actually prevents a lot of miscommunication upfront. I think a lot of myself included and my colleagues, we are actually very open to talking, to our ultimate goal is actually just to help you achieve what you want to do. So feel free to come and talk to us. It's free.
So what is the top 3 things HDB owners should actually pay attention to in the current resale market?
So I think the first one is they need to know that they probably read from the news as well that there's going to be an influx of flats that are hitting the MOP over the next few years. So because of this influx, I think owners need to know that it gives buyer more choices. So this means that their pricing positioning, they may need to manage the expectations. The second thing is practicality still matters. So units that are near MRT, near schools, amenities, etc. All those are still in demand. So the third thing is actually presentation actually matters. A lot of owners did not realize that, if your unit, you are able to present it in a so-called declutter, there's a bit more things. If you can declutter and do a bit of cleanup and all that, it actually helps. Whenever us agent bring buyers in, right, they are able to imagine it better or visualize it better. So that actually matters for the people.
When is a good time to sell and when is it not?
I think the best time to sell is when the move actually supports your current plan. Taking my parents' case as an example again, my dad wanted to assess whether it's a good time for him to sell and move to a smaller unit, so-called right size. However, after taking in all the factors, he decided that it's not a good move. So I think ultimately, client need to understand what is their goal and what is your plan. Once you know, right, it is very easy for you to make the decision whether now it's a good time to sell, and then whether now it's not a good time to sell. You can actually make the decision quite easily.
So how should homeowners think about valuation versus asking price?
I think firstly, homeowner need to understand valuation and asking price is not the same thing. Valuation is what based on past transactions and how HDB or the bank sees it. Whereas asking price is basically based on market demands, right? So I think if a unit that has good attributions, near MRT, near good schools, and all that, it still can demand good pricing. So I think the important question here is what's the highest price I can ask for, but rather what's the price that you can confidently make the buyer move. I think that's more important because ultimately you want your unit to be sold.
So what are some hidden costs or realities that buyers often underestimate?
I think a lot of people will first focus on whether they can afford the monthly mortgage. But I think sometimes they forgot about hidden costs like maintenance fee, renovation fee, repairs, or even the transport fees. A lot of times I would upfront I would really ask them, what is your lifestyle like? From there I can help them to find a better locations that can maybe mitigate all that costs. So the initial fact finding is very important for me with my clients. It may seem small, but actually all those costs may actually add up to be quite a significant amount if not done right.
So what's happening in today's market that ordinary homeowners should understand better?
Currently, we are in a so-called buyer's market, meaning there are more supply. And so buyers are taking their time to be looking for their perfect home. So in this case, the sellers actually need to understand more why the buyers are taking a little bit longer to make decisions. And also they may want to review their pricing position in order to make the unit more attractive for buyers to take on the unit.
So what are some conversations people secretly have about money and housing, maybe during dinner with family or friends?
I think one factor stands out is the affordability. Some people feel that they seem to be falling behind. Are they going to be able to afford the house? Especially when you see all the headlines, $1 million units and all that. So some people secretly were a bit concerned. And then I do have clients also, they are worried that, should they be right sizing their unit? They're slightly on the older side, I call them the young senior. They are actually secretly concerned whether, is it a good time for them to right size their unit, and have some funds for their retirement. So I think these are all valid concerns. I think a conversation to clear out all these doubts is actually quite helpful. People who are having all these doubts.
What does home mean to you personally now compared to when you were younger?
I think when I was younger, home is like stability, achievement, because you are able to buy that big house and all that. But I think as I grow older, I realized that home is no longer just size or status, but it actually provides emotional peace, comfort level. And I think maybe it's for me, my age, that is very important at this stage of life. I think for young seniors who are looking into whether should they be right-sizing their units, they can actually explore. Some they are so used to their house, their size and all that. Then if they are planning to right size, they could actually look for a smaller unit. Or if they are very comfortable with where they are, they can actually just explore schemes such as the Silver Housing Buyback scheme from HDB, where HDB actually, or rather you can actually sell part of the remaining lease of your unit to HDB and then you continue to stay there. I did see some, during my door knock sessions, I did meet up with some senior who did that. They are very happy to have their home and then they still get some money back on, which I think is perfect for them as well.
That's all the questions we have. Stay tuned for the next episode.